he should have a pen that says, "I stole and then burned the Jackie Robinson statue in 2024. Welcome to Racist of the Week, where we expose the stupidity and hypocrisy of discrimination in hopes we can build a more perfect union. And also laugh. As usual, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Racism. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the page, and definitely leave me any possible suggestions for nominees in the comments. Our first nominee, this guy. Wichita police have made an arrest in the theft and destruction of the Jackie Robinson statue from a Wichita, Kansas park. The incident, which occurred a few weeks ago, involved the theft and subsequent burning of the Jackie Robinson statue, an act that not only dishonored an important figure in American history, but also resulted in significant financial loss. According to the Wichita Police Department, the statue was valued at $75,000, which I would say, given that they burned something that was valued at $75,000, kind of speaks to their motives. My thought, who destroys a Jackie Robinson statue? In 2024, a Jackie Robinson statue? I thought that Jackie Robinson had entered that Martin Luther King zone of black people where all of America pretends like he was beloved, despite the fact that they all but terrorized him when he was alive. And it's a good person whose name to bring up to get yourself out of trouble when you said something cross about black people. I thought he had entered the MLK zone. You know what? For burning a Jackie Robinson statue in 2024, you deserve to be arrested during Black History Month. And I want to know what he tells people in jail he got arrested for. He should have a pen that says, "I stole and then burned the Jackie Robinson statue in 2024. Who would do something like this? This got to be the family of Ty Cobb. This got to be the family of Ty Cobb. Like, you know what? Our legacy was secure until that damn integration. I was going to go down as the greatest player of all time. Who was this, Ben Chapman? Or maybe Kennesaw Mountain Landis? Like, man, I had an impeccable record, but because of my pesky racism, now nobody gives me any shine. Is this person related to one of the three or all three? I'm going to take a look at him and say, probably. 45-year-old Ricky Alderete has been arrested and charged with the crime. He faces charges of felony theft, identity theft, making false information, and aggravated criminal damage. Now, while Alderete's arrest marks a crucial step in the investigation, Wichita Police Chief Joe Sullivan hinted that it's just the beginning, suggesting the possibility of more arrests in connection with the case. I mean, does that look like the kind of guy who carried this out all by himself? Now, Alderete was taken into custody earlier this month for an unrelated case. And if you're wondering, he didn't need Jackie Robinson to cross over the criminal activity. No, he lived there already. However, authorities claim there's currently no evidence to suggest the crime was motivated by hate or race. Now, let me see. He stole something that was worth $75,000. Does this gentleman look like he could use 75 grand? I mean, does this gentleman look like he could use 7 grand? Does this gentleman look like he could use $700? But he chose to burn the statue. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it was motivated by hate or race. That's what I'm gonna go ahead and say. Now, there is some good news, however. League 42, a youth baseball league that utilizes the park where the statue was stolen for his games, initiated a GoFundMe campaign to raise funds for a replacement. And the community overwhelmingly contributed over $190,000, surpassing the initial goal of $175,000. Shout out to y'all. The need for fundraising arose as the remains of the vandalized statue were found in a state beyond repair, making it nearly impossible to restore. Now, the statue holds particular significance for that youth baseball league as it pays tribute to Robinson's uniform number, and it is situated in an area with a rich history connected to the legendary second baseman. Jackie Robinson's ties to Kansas include playing for the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro Leagues in 1945, but of course, my intelligent viewers of this channel already knew that. But he was also drafted into an Army cavalry unit in the state in 1942. The community's commitment to replacing the statue reflects a collective effort to preserve the legacy of a baseball icon and maintain the historical connection with the esteemed athlete. So shout out to everybody out in Wichita. Our next nominee, founder of Lululemon, Chip Wilson. Now, in a recent interview with Forbes, Wilson made it clear he's not really down with all that diversity and inclusion stuff the company is on these days. He says, and I quote, Lululemon is trying to become like the Gap, everything to everybody. And I think the definition of a brand is that you're not everything to everybody. You've got to be clear that you don't want certain customers coming in. Oh, you don't want certain customers coming in. Are you giving back all that money then? Is that what you're saying? You giving back the money from the wrong customers that came in? Really, bro? You make yoga pants. Why don't you humble yourself? Now, Lululemon was founded in 1998. They better hope that they have half the staying power of the Gap, because all it takes is for white women to find a new hobby and they are screwed. I mean, Kim Kardashian is dangerously close to shattering their business model. Lululemon better take money from whoever is willing to buy their overpriced clothes, because Skims is coming for you. Yes, I'll be on Instagram. I know how many of them are out there. Now, Chip Wilson is the same man who revealed in a 2004 interview, get this, that the name Lululemon was derived from his perception that people of Japanese descent struggle with the words containing the letter L. Yes, this racially insensitive comment was part of his decision-making process in naming the company. Yeah, so it looks like Chip has been committed to racism for a very long time. This is what he said, quote, L is not in their vocabulary. It's a tough pronunciation for them. So I thought next time I have a company, I'll make a name with 3 L's and see if I can get 3 times the money. It's kind of exotic for them. I was playing with L's and I came up with Lululemon. It's fun to watch them try and say it. I'm almost speechless. Almost. Actually, I'm pretty speechless. The man named his company as a racist joke. It is crazy that he's still out here doing interviews. And how did this not come to light before now? Wilson actually stepped down as CEO in 2013 after facing backlash for inappropriate comments regarding women's bodies. And yes, he makes yoga pants. And it's coming from a man who looks like his hairline was chafed away. He kind of looks like somebody tried to clone Rob Corddry, but created a testicle that can speak instead. Oops. Now, despite his controversial comments, the brand does continue to thrive, but attempts were made to distance itself from Wilson's views and present a more inclusive image. Lululemon introduced an Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Action initiative in 2020 to address past issues by focusing on staff diversity and inclusivity, which I'm sure Chip loved. Y'all better hope this works, because if it doesn't, you'll see Lululemon all over Burlington Coat Factory. Is that what you want, Chip? Is that what you want? If not, you need to shut your mouth and go away. And by the way, am I not the only person who thinks about the fact that this was supposed to be racist towards Asian people every time I say the word Lululemon? I've said it like 3 times now, and my mind goes back there every time. I don't know if I'll ever be able to disassociate that. And yes, Lululemon, you have Chip Wilson to thank for that. Congratulations to him and to Riggy Alderete. You are our racist of the week. And you know what? Special shout out to the good people of Wichita, Kansas. That was really dope. Positive news that we needed during Black History Month. If you see somebody you would like to nominate, go ahead and throw them in the comments. You can email me at reese.waters@gmail.com. And be sure to check out my videos on the Truckers for Trump New York City boycott. Also, I had one on Fox News saying that Trump sneakers was going to secure the black vote. I got a video about the Karen who said no Spanish at Disneyland. We got just about everything covered. Be sure to subscribe to the page and make sure you get notified when the next video drops. the slave-owning founding fathers, lone wolves, the Civil War, lone wolves, Jim Crow, lone wolves, Birth of a Nation, lone wolves, redlining, lone wolves, the Southern Strategy, lone wolves, the Indian Removal Act, lone wolves. That's a wolf pack you got there. You know what? We're gonna need a name for this wolf pack. Let's call it Sam. Uncle Sam. Welcome to Racist of the Week, where we expose the stupidity and hypocrisy of discrimination in hopes we can build a more perfect union and also laugh. As usual, I would like to thank today's sponsor, Racism. And a quick shout out to last week's nominees, Nikki Haley, The Cross Couple, Navy Federal Credit Union, and the state of South Carolina. Now on to this week's unfortunate selections. Come on down, Fox Sports radio host Mos Boulianos. During a discussion about Lamar Jackson's standing in the NFL's MVP race, she suggested that Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens quarterback, didn't fit her perception of a typical quarterback. You know what? Let's just bring it right up.
This is what we do. Enrich, but I want my quarterbacks to be quarterbacky. And to me, Lamar Jackson's just a great athlete, and he's done a really good job, and he had a great game against the 49ers. Prisoners of the moment. He is not the MVP.
Quarterbacky? So what do you mean by that? Maybe the 321 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and a perfect passer rating of 158.3 last weekend? Is that quarterbacky enough? Or maybe you like your quarterbacks not told they should switch positions or outright called a running back, because it certainly isn't about production or touchdowns or winning games or MVPs. I mean, Marlon Briscoe, the first black starting quarterback in the Super Bowl era, wasn't quarterbacky and setting multiple records at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. So the Denver Broncos put him at cornerback. That's right, they put my man on defense. So wasn't no water boy positions that was available. They didn't want him to seat people at Mile High Stadium. Put him at cornerback. After throwing for 14 touchdowns and only 5 starts and rescuing the team in the process, it had to get to that point for them to even give him an opportunity. And by the way, those are franchise rookie records. The Broncos still didn't think he was quarterbacky enough, and he had to continue his career as a receiver. Then there's Warren Moon, who wasn't quarterbacky enough. Despite winning MVP of the Rose Bowl in 1977, had to go to the Canadian Football League and throw for 5,000 yards in a season to get an opportunity. Hey, you remember when Charlie Ward won a national championship and a Heisman Trophy, and everybody knew he'd be the first black quarterback drafted in the first round since 1978, but then the NFL team said he was too short? So he played 12 seasons in the NBA, you know, the league that's built around height instead. Yes, I do, Michael Harriot. I definitely do. What do all these athletes have in common? Because it definitely isn't dual threat. If Warren Moon started running in 1977, he still wouldn't have a first down. Now, she would later say on Twitter that her comments had nothing to do with race. Show me where you said the Bills' Josh Allen wasn't quarterbacky enough for you, and then I'll agree. So first, you can't play quarterback. Then you don't play it the right way. Next, you're just not quarterbacky enough. I think I got it. And the other interesting thing about her saying that he's not her in her typical mold of a quarterback, well, none of the guys who break the mold are in your typical mold of a quarterback. That's how the mold progresses and change over time. You remember quarterbacks used to look like they were throwing with their feet. You know who didn't look like a prototypical quarterback? Dan Marino, because he came in and was throwing it more than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. That's what happens when we change and evolve. That makes us better. It's a good thing he doesn't fit your typical mold, but your mold should always be changing. You know, my typical mold of a sports radio host is a white guy, which would mean you wouldn't fit my typical mold, but that's okay. I'm taking your opinion seriously. At least I was. I don't know if I can after this point. You also, by the way, called him just a great athlete. Ooh, just a great athlete. That's a tough one. It's a lot of just great athletes outside playing pickup in the park by day that did not put in all the hours and the discipline it takes to start in the NFL, but go off about how he's just a great athlete. This whole thing, of course, transcends sports. Moving the goalposts is nothing new. Reinventing expectations and increased scrutiny comes in the welcome packet we get in the Rookie Black Professional Symposium, along with the ability to hear dog whistles like this one. Now let's go to Arizona, where Vietnam vet Joe Abadili, curator of the Arizona Military Museum in Phoenix for 40 years, took L's all year, ending with the permanent closing of the museum due to his own offensive behavior. Now, how offensive does your behavior have to be to get a whole museum closed down? I mean, I've heard of people getting kicked out the museum. I've heard of getting banned from the museum. I've never heard of the museum is closing down due to your behavior. Now, Abadili received a letter from the Arizona National Guard Brigadier General John Conley in May of 2023, accusing him of making prejudice statements during a tour in February. The letter, revealed by the Arizona Republic, cited Abadili's remarks about being replaced by somebody he described as a, quote, gay black woman woke Jew who will ruin the place. Dog, you gotta pick one. You gotta pick one. You gotta pick one. You can't. Who you got a problem with? Who is it that you got a problem with? Is it the blacks? Is it the women? Is it the Jews? Is it the gays? I mean, what you doing, man? What you doing? The letter also highlighted Abadili's use of profanity on the tour, calling, quote, all Americans stupid, and told the members of the tour group that they knew nothing about the realities of the Vietnam era because they were too young, brainwashed, stupid, duped, uneducated, or uncaring. See, now you're doing too much. You keep doing, Joe, I warned you. If you just would have said they were too young, that would have made sense, because there's a lot of youth that don't know the realities of the Vietnam War. There's a lot of youth that don't know the realities of a lot of stuff. So you would have been fine. If you just would have went uncaring, if you just would have went duped, we could ride with that too. Because there's a lot of people that are older that have had that conflict misrepresented for them. But you put it all together and now you just sound like you out here just mad yelling outside the 7-Eleven. And that's what's actually, it's actually probably where you are right now. Mandating Abadili to undergo diversity, equity, and inclusion training by the Arizona National Guard. Despite warnings, in an interview with a reporter, he allegedly claimed that a mannequin of a soldier with a hand on its hip was meant to represent gay soldiers. Why, Joe? Why? Because I know you were sitting on that one for a long time. I know you were sitting on that one for a long time. You came in every day and you saw that soldier with the hand on his hip, and that's where your mind went. And you said, you know what, next time I get an opportunity, I'm going with that one. I'm going with that one. And the opportunity presented itself, and your brain said, you know what, don't do it, Joe, because you already made the comment about the young, uncaring, brainwashed and duped, and you also made the comment about the woke Jew, black gay person. You know what? Why don't you let it ride? Like, you just got the letter, just let it ride. No, this is too funny. The people need to hear it. Is that what you're doing? You just couldn't help yourself because the joke was that good. The joke was that good, Joe. Subsequently, Abadili stepped down from his role as curator. However, the museum faced challenges beyond his departure as it remained closed for several months due to the withdrawal of state support. The Arizona National Guard is actively seeking a replacement to manage the museum and aims to open it to the public in due course. All right, Elon Musk, come on down. The tech mogul has been condemned by prominent civil rights organizations after he criticized the efforts of United Airlines and Boeing to diversify their pilots and factory workers. Here we go again. DEI is the enemy. It almost seems like a coordinated attack. Musk's comments on Twitter, that's right, his mama called it Twitter, I'ma call it Twitter, asserted that these diversity initiatives have compromised air travel safety. However, he provided no, and I mean no, substantiating evidence for this claim. The president and CEO of the National Urban League, Mark Morial, condemned Musk's statements as abhorrent and pathetic. Notably, Tesla, where Musk serves as CEO, is currently facing a lawsuit from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission over allegations of racial abuse against black employees, including racial slurs and the discovery of nooses in the workplace. Furthermore, Tesla has been accused of not addressing complaints of racial abuse and even retaliating against employees who spoke out. So this is all starting to make a little bit of sense now, because if you get rid of the diversity, then you don't have any complaints from the Equal Opportunity Commission. So if you can't stamp out the racism, stamp out the race. I think I got it, Elon Musk. Derek Johnson, president and CEO of the NAACP, responded that the actual danger stems from Musk's own social media site, which according to Johnson provides a platform for hate speech and white supremacist conspiracy theories. I would also say according to the timeline. Just pick a timeline, literally any timeline. Now, Musk engaged in the airline safety debate following an incident where a panel detached from a Boeing jet mid-flight. Now, you must be wondering if there's some sort of connection between diversity initiatives and the Boeing incident, but that would be to assume that these concerns are real and these people are arguing in good faith. They don't need an excuse to be racist. Elon Musk's initial DEI comments began when he responded to a user's speculation about the IQ scores of United Airlines pilots who graduated from historically black colleges and universities, insinuating that these scores might be lower than those of Air Force pilots. Now, first where you got me messed up is correlating SAT scores and IQ, and boy, do I have a surprise for you. You know who I want you to tell that SAT scores are tightly correlated with IQ? Tell the Princeton Review. Just go ahead and ask the Princeton Review how they feel about that. I want you to tell Kaplan that they are no longer needed. SAT scores are correlated with IQ and therefore are set and fixed. I want you to tell the College Board that I want all my Saturdays back between my sophomore and junior year of high school. You wasted my time because it was simply a measure of my IQ. Then I want you to call the SAT people and tell them that 240 point gap between the first time I took the SATs and the second time I took the SATs was a lie. One of those was a lie. I don't know which one of those was a lie. Hopefully the first one was a lie, but they both couldn't have been legit. Now let's also address the fact that he's going at HBCUs, and one thing we know is that not all black professionals go to HBCUs. I did not go to an HBCU, so that's curious that all of a sudden you would select them as the object of your slander. Then you go on to average the SAT scores at an HBCU and attach those to everybody who goes to said HBCU. And I didn't even know you could do that. That is incredible. I didn't know you could take the average SAT score at a school and apply that to everybody who went there and disqualify them from working in certain positions. Man, I'm gonna have some carnage when I get a hold of where some of y'all went to school. You know what? Just call black people stupid. Just go ahead and call black people stupid. Just because you're giving me all this nonsense. Just say I think black people are stupid. Okay, that would be quicker and to the point. You have the thinnest thread that you stretched all the way around the world and back in order to be racist. And guess what? Elon Musk jumped right over it. Yes, he did. The conversation continued with Musk mocking United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby and questioning the prioritization of DEI hiring over passenger safety. The post, by the way, received substantial attention on Twitter, garnering 14 million views within a couple of hours. And you know what? I think that Derek Johnson of the NAACP might have a point, because I just expressed how silly and outlandish the initial post was, but in responding to it, 14 million views looking at that garbage. A spokesperson for United Airlines declined to comment on Musk's remarks. However, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, who sets minimum standards for flying commercial planes, has increased these standards in 2013 following a crash near Buffalo. In recent years, airlines have sought to expand the pool of potential pilots due to staffing shortages and the persistent financial obstacles preventing qualified individuals from pursuing a career as a pilot. You know, that's kind of what DEI is for. These efforts have included partnerships with HBCUs. Historically, the commercial airline industry faced discrimination against non-white pilots, leading to legal battles and a Supreme Court ruling to bring about change. Now, experts in the aviation industry pointed out that current hiring standards are stringent and focus on ensuring the highest quality of pilots. Commercial air travel, as per Dutch air safety organization TO70, is at its safest in 2023, with record low accidents and fatalities. Now, I don't play any games when it comes to my life, but given, according to Dutch air safety organization TO70, commercial flying is at its safest, the issue here is clearly not the safety, it's the diversity itself. And for more proof, look no further than the reaction of Southwest's all-female flight crew under the heading All-Female Flight Crew Go Off Queens. Okay, the caption is cringe. I'm not gonna lie, the caption is cringe. That does deserve to get roasted. But what I wanna know is how they can post this and have no idea how the internet works. You post this picture in 2024 on Elon Musk's platform, you're gonna get bombarded with trash posts from incels and losers who couldn't get hired as baggage handlers in Toledo. And no offense to the baggage crew in Toledo, it just sounded funny there. Well, Southwest thought they had to delete the tweet. Yes, we're at a point where a brand can't even post an innocuous tweet recognizing their all-female crew. Well, would they post an all-male crew? Sure, if they just wanted to hire somebody full-time to just post every crew. Your reaction signifies how uncommon this is. You and your buddies mobilize out of the crawl space for this specific crew and this crew alone. And I'm mad at Southwest for deleting the tweet. Let me ask you, do you think these idiots are more likely to do this to somebody else next time or less likely? You posted this tweet to show that the bar had been raised. You deleted it and lowered it right back down again. All right, let's go out west where NBA senior reporter Mark Spears faced racial profiling during a shopping trip in Healdsburg, California, despite being an esteemed writer for ESPN and Anscape, who's often featured on popular ESPN shows. So I guess racists don't read or watch TV, or maybe they think we all look alike, which I've heard quite a few of them say. You know what? Let's throw up a picture of Mark Spears. There isn't really a whole lot of reason to discriminate against Mark Spears other than his race. In fact, I would dress as ESPN writer Mark Spears to not be discriminated against. That is exactly the avatar that I would choose to walk about life. Now, Spears shared his experience on Instagram, writing, quote, "My friends and I, all African American, were racially profiled at a store in Healdsburg called Anthem Interiors by 2 employees. When things like that happen, I get angry inside and feel pressure to buy something expensive to prove my worth, and they're wrong. After refraining from the urge, I tried to give the lady that worked there the benefit of the doubt by asking if she knew where the nearest bathroom is." Now, first of all, never buy something expensive out of spite, because I have done it. And boy, let me tell you, I have more oil diffusers down in my basement that I will never use. If you want to disrespect somebody with your money, just throw cash at them like you do at night after midnight. You know what I'm talking about. But not in the way you would at that time. Just ball it up and toss it like a snowball. Or if you're feeling really creative, just go ahead and make a paper airplane and throw it at them. Or do like me and just keep it in your pocket, because I'm cheap. It was after attempting to defuse the situation by asking an employee where the bathroom was that things went all the way left. Spears continued, "She suggested I go to the Healdsburg Police Department across the street to use their facilities. I wonder why." She told him to go to the police department. Confused, I asked her why I would go to the bathroom at the police station. Her response was that it'll be okay, they won't arrest you. I immediately departed and found a bathroom at a very friendly wine bar across the street called Lyoko Wine Company. Again, I truly love Healdsburg and won't let this one incident steal my joy or cause me not to return, but I didn't want to let them off the hook either, thanks to the ones that show love, not ignorance and racism. So if you're scoring at home, You chose the absolute worst person that you could discriminate against, somebody who works in the media and national media at that. I couldn't think of anybody worse to discriminate against. I mean, maybe like the mayor who could get you shut down. That would be a bad one. Maybe like a police chief or somebody like that could harass you after hours or give you a bunch of faulty tickets. Right after that would be the media. I mean, literally of anybody in the world, this has to be the worst. Shout out to Lioco Wine Company too, who just through no effort of their own end up getting the best advertisement they ever could. Forget all that posts in the black boxes. I want to know how you handle Mark Spears late on a Saturday night. Do you let him use the bathroom after he got rejected from Anthem and sent to the police station? The founder of Anthem Interiors, by the way, Janelle Lovner, apologized to Spears, saying, "I'm deeply sorry that was his experience. I worked really long and hard to build a solid business. I care deeply about the community, my employees, all of it. So for this to happen is just devastating." And you know what? I can't say that she fosters this kind of environment. She wasn't there. What I will say is that her employees just got exposed like Keith Lee walked up in there. In fact, that's probably how we should conduct ourselves. We all just go about life as undercovers, just ready to blow somebody out. Shout out to Keith Lee for giving us all that idea. And notice she didn't say, "I fired that clown." I'd call for an Anthem Interiors boycott, but I've never been to Hillsburg, California, and it's a safe bet that none of you have either. We'd have to organize a group trip just to protest them and whatever it is they sell at that store. Now, Spears graciously accepted the apology and is moving on. And you know what? Shout out to him. He handled that as graciously as he possibly could. Yes, the former South Carolina governor and aspiring presidential candidate tripped over herself again during a recent Fox and Friends interview. Brian Kilmeade raised a video clip from Joy Reid's commentary highlighting the challenges faced by Haley as a woman of color and a party perceived as anti-immigrant. When asked directly if she thought the GOP was a racist party, Haley, well, you know what? I'll let her tell it.
Are you a racist party? Are you involved in a racist party?
No. We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday. Are we perfect? No. But our goal is to always make sure we try and be more perfect every day that we can. I know I faced racism when I was growing up, but I can tell you today is a lot better than it was then. Our goal is to lift up everybody, not go and divide people on race or gender or party or anything else. We've had enough of that in America. That's why I'm so passionate about doing this. I don't want my kids growing up where they're sitting there thinking that they're disadvantaged because of a color or a gender. I want them to know that if they work hard, they can do and be anything they want to be in America.
Ooh, so close. Truth be told, this is actually understandable considering that she's already shown complete ignorance of one little event that kind of disproves her theory, you know, like the Civil War. But I already dragged her for that one. We get to go all over again in this new clip. Now, America has never been a racist country. I've heard America is not a racist country, which deserves its own treatment, but never? Okay, Nikki, a couple things gonna be kind of hard to explain, like how 41 of the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence were slave owners, or the 3/5 compromise, which counted black people as 3/5 of a person. Or like 1915, when Klan propaganda film Birth of a Nation was shown in the White House in front of the president, something even the Woodrow Wilson estate saw fit to apologize for. But not Nikki Haley. Then there's the whole Jim Crow era in the South. There's the Southern strategy, whereby Republican candidates gain political support in the Southern United States by directly appealing to racism against African Americans, something even former RNC chairman Ken Mehlman later apologized for. But not Nikki Haley. How about redlining? Or the outright denial of FHA loans to black borrowers, or the predatory loans that were given to those who actually got one. And that's just off the top. And it's just black people. Weren't we just here talking about anti-Semitism? Then COVID had the rise in anti-AAPI rhetoric, and Since 2001, there's been ever-present Islamophobia. And no, indigenous community, I'm not going to leave you out of this one. There is so much to choose from. But this one takes the cake for me. The 1830 Indian Removal Act, forcibly relocating Cherokee, Creeks, and other eastern indigenous peoples west of the Mississippi River to make room for white settlers, followed by the 1862 Homestead Act, following suit, giving away millions of acres for free of what had been Indian territory west of the Mississippi. Ultimately, 270 million acres, or 10% of the total land area of the United States, was completely given away. Now, I just want to unpack that for a second. The government forcibly removed people from their land and didn't even have the people or resources to populate it themselves. We don't need it. We just don't want you to have it. Then gave it away to white settlers. We don't care who has it, as long as it's not them. It doesn't get any more racist than that. A drunk wandered out of a bar in North Carolina into generational wealth just because he didn't have enough melanin on him. But ultimately, I don't need to go outside examples. I could just use your own words. You also said,
we've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
huh?
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
Huh?
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
Come again?
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
One more time.
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
Nikki, I need you to help me with something. There's also this tweet that you posted, as well as your own family history. Your family only immigrated because civil rights leaders reformed America's racist immigration laws in 1965 to allow Asians to immigrate. Her father then taught at an HBCU. Then there's the existence and necessity for HBCUs in the first place, which could also refute your point. Oh, I get it now. Individual people can be racist, but America isn't racist. So those people who discriminated against you were lone wolves, and your family, those were also lone wolves. And Black people unable to attend the PWI, lone wolves. The slave owning founding fathers, lone wolves. The Civil War, lone wolves. Jim Crow, lone wolves. Birth of a Nation, lone wolves. Redlining, lone wolves. The Southern Strategy, lone wolves. The Indian Removal Act, lone wolves. That's a wolf pack you got there. You know what? We're gonna need a name for this wolf pack. Let's call it Sam. Uncle Sam. I'm gonna be honest, Nikki. I've looked at the evidence and the only conclusion I can draw is you hate Black people. That's it. Or at the very least, you think you're better than them. There's too much evidence for you to be making these specific statements, ignoring the struggle my ancestors and colleagues, because this is ongoing, endured, much of which you benefited from. The actual audacity. You're like the most ungrateful child in the world. In fact, you don't even use your real name, Nimrata. Oh, that must be it. You hate Black people that have the courage to run for president and win, as Barack Hussein Obama, which, by the way, triggered a whole round of racism itself. But you have to hide behind Nikki Haley. Well, there's lessons in everything, Nimrata. The thought that you had to go with Nikki proves the existence of the thing you willfully ignore. If America wasn't a racist country, then it would have been Nimrata Haley who got dog walked in the Iowa primary. Now let's talk about what's really going on here. First of all, Nikki is talking to people who don't want to talk about race. Why? Because they can't reconcile it with their view of America. To them, America is the greatest country in the world, and they won't hear any evidence to the contrary, which is funny when you think about it, because if you refuse to hear evidence refuting your claim, then you don't actually believe your claim. You admitted to yourself that you're full of it and you just want to cosplay in red hats and blue flags. I believe I'm the fastest man in the world. No, I ain't racing nobody. I'm not gonna watch nobody else race. I'm not even gonna time myself. It just is. Oh, and while we're at it, I'm also the finest man in America. Second, and most importantly, Nikki Haley is appealing to the racist in Donald Trump's base. That's right. Not let me get some of the more moderate folks who got lost and somehow found themselves at a MAGA rally. No, it's let me appeal to the worst of his base just so they know I'm their gal too. That's where we're at with our politics in 2024. Yeah, the greatest country in the world. Yeah, you remember when Snakes on a Plane actress Juliana Margulies lost her whole ass mind and spewed unbelievable racist hate on Backroom with Andy Ostroy? Yeah, well, the host remarked that, quote, people hate Jews, talking about the anti-Semitism as it pertains to the Israel-Hamas war. And Margulies, well, she took the ball and ran with it and then fumbled repeatedly.
In the civil rights movement, the Jews were the ones that walked side by side with the blacks to fight for their rights because they know. And now the black community isn't embracing us and saying we stand with you the way you stood with us. Jews died for their cause. Where's the history lesson in that? Who's teaching these kids? Because the fact that the entire black community isn't standing with us, to me, says either they just don't know, or they've been brainwashed to hate Jews. There was a film being shown by this black lesbian club on Columbia campus, and they put signs up that said "No Jews allowed." And as someone who plays a lesbian journalist on the morning show, I'm more offended by it as a lesbian than I am as a Jew, to be honest with you, because I want to say to them, you fucking idiots. You don't exist. Like, you're even lower than the Jews. A, you're black, and B, you're gay. And you're turning your back against the people who support you?
Naturally, the heat came for Juliana and not the group in question. I mean, that's normal. You were a guest star on Homicide: Life on the Street, for goodness sakes. But they both did have something to say. Now, the Columbia University student group in question, Lionless, issued a statement clarifying their position. They deny anti-Semitism, saying that there was an email that was sent out that said no Zionists allowed, a distinction between criticizing the political ideology of Zionism and targeting Jewish people at large. The Columbia Spectator reports that Lionless internally considered the email and social media posts about Zionism, which were written by a former president, to be inappropriate. Lionless's statement emphasizes their opposition to all forms of discrimination, including anti-Semitism, Zionism, and other systems of oppression. Juliana Margulies, by the way, apologized for offending the black and LGBTQIA people, stating, quote, I am horrified by the fact that statements I made on a recent podcast offended the black and LGBTQIA plus communities I truly love and respect. She said this in a statement to Deadline and the Washington Post. She also said, I want to be 100% clear. Racism, homophobia, sexism, or any prejudice against anyone's personal beliefs or identity are abhorrent to me, full stop. However, she hasn't commented on Lionless's statement clarifying their position, and I do think that's one apology that should be as loud as any other, since she singled them out and tried to assassinate the character of the entire group. Now, speaking of apologies, quote, I sincerely apologize to the Jewish community for any unplanned outbursts. It was not my intent to hurt or disrespect, and I very much regret any pain I may have caused. One guess who wrote that. The impossible appears possible. It has happened. Kanye West has issued an apology. Yes, Kanye ended up apologizing for his outbursts on social media last year. Also the posts and the rant and the hood, which I did talk about right here. Now, as much as I want to support any effort to take our power back, it rings kind of hollow from somebody who claims slavery was a choice, the culture was asleep, and that white lives matter. When last seen, Adidas had to offload Yeezys at the gas station because of comments you made about Jewish people. So the next move is to go with a black hood. Got it. I don't know whether to shake my head on behalf of black people or white people. How about both? And he made his apology on his Instagram in Hebrew. Now that is serious. Now I'll admit it is a bit odd for somebody who seemed to court and welcome the idea that Jews controlled the world to apologize. I mean, any consequences you could be facing, you said you could foresee. It's right there in your own words. You said you couldn't be canceled. I guess by that logic, he actually might mean it. Nah, we can't even get a straight answer on when his next project is coming out. He is not to be trusted. Not even about himself, especially about himself. Kanye made a business decision in a whole nother language. But he did get a lifeline from Cat Williams, though. I mean, kinda.
I suspect that we're pretty awful people if we say that somebody got a mental illness and then we watch what they do. If you say somebody got special needs, then why would you be watching them and holding them accountable like everybody else? Wouldn't you grade them on a curve? Wouldn't you go, whew, this guy? Because, I mean, what are we reacting to? What are we reacting to? You're the one that put him in a position where he thought he was God and could call himself Jesus. And you're the one told a guy that writes musical lyrics that he was a genius. You're the one that's like, so what do you expect? The guy married a whore. Like, what?
Oh, Lord.
Like, I didn't mean it like that. I mean, married her because she was one.
I mean, while Cat did call his ex-wife a whore, he also said we might be bad people for watching and following what he does since we've seeded that he needs help. And yes, that appears to be Cat Williams coming through with the sober take that we all needed. Let's end on a positive, kind of, sort of. You remember that guy in Illinois who got convicted thanks to a blind witness? No physical evidence connected Harris to the shooting, but the judge relied heavily on the testimony of an eyewitness, Dexter Saffold. Saffold, who claimed he saw the shooting from a distance of fewer than 20 feet while riding his motorized scooter home, identified Harris as the perpetrator, both to the police and at trial. Although Judge Ford regarded Saffold's testimony as credible and sentenced Harris to 76 years. Shocking. And later emerged that Saffold had been declared legally blind by a doctor in 2002. Yes, no, not 2012, not 2022, but 2002, as in almost a decade before the trial. This Bama was legally blind for over 10 years, claiming he saw something. Also, what was he doing on a scooter? I mean, they should be arresting him because that sounds dangerous. I mean, he sounds like a menace. Well, Darian Harris has been freed. He's free. It's about time. His previous attorney discovered new evidence in 2018, but a review by the Conviction Integrity Unit initially found it inconclusive. Harris's lawyers filed a post-conviction petition highlighting evidence and constitutional violations. Cook County State's Attorney's Office decided not to retry Harris after reviewing the case again. I guess the DA saw the light. Now, 18 at the time of his arrest and conviction, 30-year-old Darian Harris spent 12 and a half years in prison. After years of appeals and investigations, prosecutors have dropped the charges and Harris was released. Mind you, this was the fourth wrongful conviction exoneration in Cook County in December. I'm gonna just run that back one more time. This was the fourth wrongful conviction exoneration in Cook County in 1 month. Raising all sorts of concerns about the criminal justice system. Forget concerns, throw the whole thing in the trash and start over. Cousins James Soto and David Ayala, who were wrongfully convicted in the 1981 murder of 2 Chicago teenagers, were freed on December 14th after spending 42 years behind bars. Brian Beals walked out of prison on December 12th after being wrongfully convicted of a crime in 1988. Glenn Simmons, by the way, spent 48 years in an Oklahoma prison over a wrongful murder conviction before being exonerated last year. And as of December 13th, 19 individuals who spent at least 25 years in prison prior to exoneration were released in 2023. Now, Harris expressed joy and determination to rebuild his life after the ordeal, saying, "I finally made it. 12 and a half years, I made it. I missed some of my best years, but man, I'm finna live some good years now." Rebuild his life. The state needs to rebuild his life for him. Pay that man's bills for the next 12 and a half years. That's the least you can do after throwing him in prison for nothing. That's right. Now, this first story is not just Racist of the Week. It's got to be an early contender for Racist of the Year. That's right, Nikki. You got some competition. An unsettling revelation regarding the Smithsonian's collection of brains has surfaced, exposing a disturbing history of how these brains were obtained, because there's no normal way to have a collection of hidden brains. And if you're getting zombie apocalypse vibes, I get it. But this somehow is actually worse. Now, the Washington Post investigation unraveled a distressing account of the Smithsonian obtaining dozens of brains, often from vulnerable populations such as Black Washingtonians, without their family's knowledge or consent. That's right, Uncle Mike from Southeast. His brain might be at the Smithsonian next to Marion Barry and Chuck Brown. Among the 280 brains held by the Smithsonian, and if you had no idea the Smithsonian was holding brains, you're not alone. 74 originated from people in the DC area, with 48 of those being from Black individuals, including children and fetuses. Shockingly, some of the brains were extracted from individuals who passed away in hospitals. So apparently, we can't even die while Black. Now, it's bad enough that gentrification priced Black folks out of DC. Now you're telling me the ones that did stay are getting their brains snatched? And what makes the situation even more disturbing is the intended use of these brains. The collector, anthropologist Alice Hrdlicka, was known for his work in the early 1900s and used these brains to study eugenics. That's right, the discredited racist pseudoscience. His aim was to compare the brains of various races and individuals with disabilities. So, wow. Wow. This dude was stealing Black brains in order to call Black people inferior. He is a racist mad scientist. We should have probably actually known by the name Alice Hrdlicka. That sounds like an alias from a fake ID that was made by a fourth grader who couldn't spell. Like, is that supposed to be Alex? What is that right there? Now, the Washington Post investigation found that only a few of the 74 brains from DC locals were donated by the deceased or their families, highlighting the lack of consent and ethical concerns surrounding their acquisition. Now, I'm surprised a few even agreed. Alice had to have lied about what he needed them for. Like, we doing a study to help save children in need. You know what? Do it for the babies. Y'all want some mumbo sauce? Now, while the Smithsonian has acknowledged its problematic history and established a human remains task force, which sounds creepy as hell, but is actually commendable, to return the remains to their rightful owners, former employees have reported resistance to taking action on some of these remains. Some anthropologists were reportedly keen on continuing studies using those remains. Bruh, come on. They need to name names. I need to know who's cool with stealing brains and studying them in the year of our Lord 2024. Now, efforts to reconnect these remains to their families are expected to be challenging due to the manner in which they were obtained. Also, do they really want them back? I'm just saying, hey, you see that jar right there on the living room mantle? Yeah, that's Uncle Leroy. Just got him back from the Smithsonian. Yeah, he was in the Red Castle. Nevertheless, the Washington Post has created a database to assist users in navigating records of human remains at the Smithsonian, potentially aiding in reuniting individuals with their ancestors and loved ones. And if you think they took your loved one's brain, good luck and Godspeed on your journey to retrieve it. And also call your lawyer, because it sounds like quite the class action suit. Next up, New York's American Museum of Natural History. That's right, we're going to keep it academic and apparently keep it unjust and afterlife. Now, the museum closed 2 Native American halls last weekend, citing their outdated nature and the inclusion of culturally sensitive items. Sounds like they're doing the right thing, right? Well, the move is part of a broader trend among U.S. institutions adapting to recently updated federal regulations regarding the display of indigenous human remains and cultural artifacts. Oh, okay. So the Fed said you couldn't keep this up, and then you came with the language about how you saw the light. Oh, okay, I got it. Now, the decision to close the halls comes after the museum announced in October it will remove all human remains from public display, intending to repatriate them to Native American tribes and rightful owners. Sean Decatur, the museum's president, emphasized the growing urgency for museums to reevaluate their relationships with tribes and their approach to exhibiting indigenous cultures. And that growing urgency was born the moment President Biden signed an executive order for the Department of the Interior to announce final revisions to the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, a 1990 federal law that provides for the ownership or control of Native American cultural items, which means remains and objects, excavated or discovered on federal or tribal lands. The department's updates require museums and federal agencies to obtain consent from tribes before displaying human remains and cultural artifacts. So if you're scoring at home, essentially you were riding late to work, and it was during that ride you discovered how destructive it is for you to be late to work. Showing I'm talking about, boss, you know, that pink slip that you put on my locker just really made me rededicate myself to this job. Take me back. Look, y'all had all this time in order to see the light and do the right thing, to even consult with indigenous tribes to see how they felt about this display being done, and then you wouldn't have needed federal legislation. Now, in a letter to the staff, Decatur acknowledged that the closed halls located in the Eastern Woodlands and Great Plains sections were remnants of a time when museums didn't adequately respect indigenous values. Shocking. He stated the actions taken may feel sudden to some, but are long overdue for others. Several other institutions, including Chicago's Field Museum, Harvard University's Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology, and the Cleveland Museum of Art, have also covered or removed displays featuring Native American items to comply with the revamped federal regulations. Now, it's funny how everybody just saw the light at the exact same time. Now, Shannon O'Loughlin, head of the Association on American Indian Affairs, praised these developments, but emphasized that the true test lies in repatriation, returning objects to tribes. She noted that covering displays or removing items is just one step in a more comprehensive process. Now, the revised regulations released by the U.S. Department of the Interior in December expand requirements for consulting with tribes and obtaining their consent to exhibit and conduct research on indigenous artifacts. The changes aim to address the concerns of Native American groups who have long criticized the slow process of returning culturally significant items. Now, Decatur clarified that rather than merely covering or removing items in the closed halls, the decision was made to shutter them entirely due to their severe outdatedness, which I suppose wasn't apparent last year or the year before. Now, while this move will suspend school field trips to these halls, the museum remains committed to supporting the teaching of indigenous cultures, which is good to hear. O'Loughlin emphasized that the new regulations make it clear that research and exhibiting Native cultural heritage aren't prohibited, but require prior and informed consent. Now, as museums adapt to these regulations, discussions with Native American groups are ongoing to secure consent for the display of certain items. The ultimate goal is to foster a respectful approach to indigenous cultures within museum settings. Now, a couple of takeaways I have from this story. I was blown away by the number of times I've been in a museum and seen relics, and in some cases even remains, and gave absolutely no thought to where this came from, whether or not this belongs to some tribe somewhere, and whether or not their family considers it an affront to them that this is being shown in a museum. That is my own ignorance. And I guess in that way, I am part of the problem. Another takeaway, I live in Washington, D.C., and this is a place that had a wide debate over use of the name Redskins. There were some indigenous folks who felt like the name was offensive. There were others who felt like it was actually honoring their ancestors and their legacy. And they had the opinion, which I heard quite often on radio, that the indigenous community largely is erased from American popular culture. You really don't see them much of anywhere. I think, what was the joke that Chris Rock had about seeing a Native American family or an indigenous family at Red Lobster? You would sooner see Bigfoot. I think that was his punchline. He talked about what bigger platform is there to remind people of the significance and the greatness of indigenous cultures, the richness of indigenous cultures, than to have them represented on probably the biggest platform we have, which is the NFL. There were people that really felt that way. So while I came with the jokes and the slander, which was extremely necessary for the American Museum of Natural History and Harvard and some of the other museums that have taken these steps, I do think it's commendable that they are featuring indigenous communities, but trying to find a way to continue to feature indigenous communities, however they do that. How do we continue to do that, but do it in a way that is respectful? That is a challenge that we all face, and I think it's a challenge that we should be willing to move through as Americans because it's valuable. Charlie Kirk, the founder and president of Turning Point USA, who, you thought I was going to talk about what he said about MLK? Oh, yeah. You know, I was going to do that, but I had better things to do with my time. But I can only let you slide for so long. No, the founder and president of Turning Point USA had the following to say about black pilots on his weekly panel discussion, Thought Crime.
That's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off, and I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Oh yeah, the title was accurate. And not to be outdone, noted pick-me Candace Owens defended black excellence in her response.
And what he is remarking on is true. I would be terrified if I got onto a plane and I saw a woman flying the plane.
Y'all knew she didn't defend black excellence any more than she exhibits it. She just doubled down on supremacist thinking. But back to Kirk. I wonder if he is qualified. Well, I wonder if the Tuskegee Airmen were qualified, and Cornelius Coffey and Willa Brown, Bessie Coleman, just to name a few. I wonder if they were qualified. See, you could just as easily say, you know, I don't usually see black pilots. They must be really qualified. All they went through to get to this point, they must be really good. But you don't, because of the racism you bring to the table about black people and their abilities.
But what DEI does is it introduces poisonous, toxic lines of thinking. The point I was making is this, is it's condescending to qualified blacks. It's condescending to qualified females.
Oh, here we go again. You knew it was coming. So it's DEI's fault that you feel this way. It's diversity's fault, because before diversity efforts, you had the full faith when you saw a black pilot, right? Well, to quote the great Bill Duke, you know you done effed up, right? You know you done effed up, right? Lately, the conservative media landscape chose air travel to trump up opposition against corporate diversity programs, igniting a cultural battleground within the industry. Recent weeks have witnessed a surge in right-wing influencers, politicians, and media outlets targeting airlines' diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, often based on inaccurate or misleading information. Actually, I'll say generally based on inaccurate and misleading information. This campaign, while centered on the airline sector, holds implications for the broader culture war issues as the 2024 election year unfolds. And you know what started all this? An incident where a panel detached from Alaska Airlines Boeing jet mid-flight. Yeah, no black pilot. We're not even talking about flying at all. This is somebody's maintenance issue, and it became a referendum on DEI. There is a dude somewhere in middle America who stayed out a little bit too late with his buddies. He shouldn't have had that extra scotch. He slept in and totally forgot to report to his job at the airport the next day. No call, no show. You know what it turns into? A referendum on DEI? America. The sensible racist would have used this to attack DEI in the maintenance room. But these are not sensible racists. Everybody from Donald Trump Jr. to Elon Musk has weighed in, and I addressed Musk in a previous Racist of the Week edition, by the way, because it's always good to get an opinion from the wrong side of apartheid. Podcast host Joey Manarino claimed that, quote, the Diversity Hire Brigade was to blame for the tarmac delays at New York's JFK International. Yeah. And here's Don Jr. blaming diversity for a wheel falling off a plane in Atlanta. Did he see the maintenance staff? Did he know who worked on that particular plane? No. Just the fact that the plane was in Atlanta? Okay. It's a pretty good guess, actually. Now, the general theme is this is about life and death. We need the best pilots regardless of skin color. Diversity and inclusion is making us less safe, which would actually make a lot of sense if it was based in any actual evidence or didn't come with the assumption that black people, by their very nature, made us less safe. And yes, I know that because you said it yourself.
Because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
So it's not actually the best that gives you peace of mind. It's the whitest. So let's throw that whole merit-based argument out the window. But since we're here, let's look at the numbers anyway. 88.3% of commercial airline pilots are white. 96% of fatal commercial aviation crashes have been piloted by whites. There hasn't been an airline catastrophe of any kind involving a black pilot this century. So, you know, if you can, you should probably request a black pilot. But wait, there's more. There hasn't been a fatal commercial flight disaster in the United States since 2009, and airline experts laud flight safety for being at its highest in 2023. And yet, we're having this conversation. Why? Because it's not about the safety, it's about the diversity. And while we're at it, let me add, what diversity? Despite statements to the contrary from airlines about their commitment to diversity, about 92% of pilots and flight engineers are white. And because we like symmetry, 92% are men. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's a 9 and a 2. Also, according to them, black pilots and flight engineers grew from 2.7% in 2018 all the way to 3.6% in 2023. That's right, all this angst for 1%. Ain't no crashes to point to. Y'all don't even have diversity to point to. I guess it's not enough until it's all white, huh? And here I am thinking you wanted the best regardless of skin color. You just wanted to feel all white. And the share of pilots and flight engineers who are women fell. It fell from 9% to 8.3% from 2018 to 2023. Now here's my favorite fact though, because you remember that Boeing flight where the door came off? That started all this whole round of disingenuous alpine tears? The pilot who landed that plane was a woman. Bam! Bam! Oh, they hate to hear the truth. All y'all, and I mean all y'all, are nominated for Racist of the Week. You too, Candace Owens. Technically that was sexism, but I know where you come from. Y'all remember when Nikki Haley...
Please, what was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way. What do you want me to say about slavery? Next question.
Well, then there was the time that she said...
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
Huh?
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
Huh?
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
Come again?
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
One more time.
We've never been a racist country. I faced racism when I was growing up.
All of this making her the first two-time winner of Racist of the Week. Well, with an honor like that, you would think she would have to go on The Breakfast Club to clean things up a bit, you know, like set the record straight on the kind of person that she really is. And she did that. Well, she didn't clean things up, but we do know who she really is. Amongst other things, she downplayed the racism that was involved in the AME church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina when she was governor, where 9 black parishioners were murdered by white supremacist Dylan Roof. saying, quote, the national media came in and they wanted to define this. They wanted to make it about guns. They wanted to make it about racism. They wanted to make it about the death penalty. And when Charlemagne the God prodded her that it was in fact about racism, she added, no, it was, but the point was I strong-armed them and said there'll be a time we talk about all that, but right now we have 9 souls we need to put to rest. I didn't have that luxury because 2 days later, the killer came out draped in the Confederate flag. Nikki, what you even talking about? Like what are you even talking about? You just said you didn't have time, you had to lay them to rest, but then the killer came out draped in the Confederate flag. At that point, wouldn't you feel like you have to address the racism involved? And if now wasn't the time, and clearly years later isn't the time, when is the time? When is the time to talk about it, Nikki? Apparently, we haven't even reached the time to talk about race's role in the Civil War.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
150 plus years later. So exactly when were you going to come around to talking about race's role in it? And no, wait, it gets better or worse. Later, she told DJ Envy that she voted for the former president Donald Trump because she was tired of the racial divisions of the Obama era. Wait a minute. That can't be right. Hold on. The racial divisions of the... Are you serious? The racial divisions of... Oh, okay. So the divisions were Obama's fault. Oh, I got it. It was Obama's fault for the division. So all of the birtherism was his fault for being black. And the rise in white supremacist movements all over the country, that was his fault for being black. And the monkey cartoons, yeah, that was his fault for being monkey colored. Michelle being called a man, I guess that was her fault for actually filling out a dress. That is quite the blank check that you gave white people. No matter what happens, it is other people's fault. No wonder you don't think slavery had a role in the Civil War. You probably think blacks weren't working hard enough. Oh, that all makes quite a bit of sense. And I'm sure you think that the racism that your own family faced was your fault. Actually, you probably do think that. You probably do think it was your fault. All right. There was so much that it was hard to pick just a few, but I do have to give you this one. She was asked, quote, when you look at the inequalities in America in education, home ownership, employment and wealth, healthcare, can you admit that America is systemically and structurally a racist country? Now, this was, of course, on the heels of her claiming that America has never been racist, which, by the way, was a topic for a whole episode of Racist of the Week. So she was asked, can you admit that America is systemically and structurally a racist country? To which she says, I think culture has a lot to do with it, right? Right. You think they're going to agree with something like that? You think culture has a lot to do with it? Okay, so when they were doing redlining, I guess they were going through the black communities and making sure that everybody who had the right culture could move into the white neighborhoods and the ones that didn't couldn't. Is that what it is? Like all the black people that had the right culture got the FHA loans and everybody else couldn't? Is that what you're talking about? And moreover, I'm pretty sure that places like Tulsa and Rosewood had exactly the right culture you're talking about, and they were destroyed. If for no other reason, because they had that culture, and also they were turning over money hand over fist. So it seems that when that culture is achieved, you find a way to destroy it. And yet you point to culture as the reason why black people haven't advanced. What a trick bag you just created there. I'm gonna have to do a whole separate video on this. So you mean to tell me you can systematically extract wealth from black families for generations, place it in the hands of whites, and then talk about culture because culture is never affected by economics, right? It's never, yeah, it's not. We're just a monolith, regardless of our financial means as our whites. So that makes a whole lot of sense. That's one of the things they love to do. They say, oh no, it's not about race, it's about culture. It's not about race, this is about money, this is fine. Oh yeah, because money and finances is never about race, right? It's never about race, never tied into that. Don't let them fool you. That brings me to my next update, and we're staying in South Carolina. See, Nikki Haley, this is what you leave behind when you lead with that level of ignorance. So y'all remember that couple in Conway, South Carolina got picked up and charged for burning a cross? A white couple from Conway, South Carolina was arrested for erecting and setting fire to a cross outside their black neighbor's home over Thanksgiving weekend. In addition, Butler allegedly posted the black couple's address on Facebook and wrote that he planned to summon the devil's army. And I don't care if they and I both go down in the same boat. I'm about to make them pay. That's according to USA Today. It's funny he used boat because he definitely could not afford a boat. And let me say, my favorite threats are the ones that are posted on Facebook, because not only is there a paper trail, but I know you're really behind on things and you're not going to get around to attacking me until at least your Vine account gets set up. Now, Butler and Harnett were arrested in December and charged with second-degree harassment. Additionally, federal investigations into civil rights violations are underway, but the severity of their actions has prompted a special prosecutor, James Battle, to file a petition declaring Butler and Harnett's residence a public nuisance. 15th Circuit Solicitor Jimmy Richardson has requested a judge to approve a temporary injunction for the immediate eviction of the couple. The proposal suggests boarding up the residence until the case is officially heard in court. And to that I say, what home? What home? Why is this couple even at home? What does Joe Dirt, Bonnie, and Clyde gotta do to get locked up no bail? Cause I mean, just look at this couple. Does it look like they paid bail? And I do though find it ironic though, I must say this, that they might lose their home after burning lumber. I mean, that is ironic. I mean, they wasted all that fine craftsmanship they might need very soon. So if I were you, Butler and Harnett, I better go ahead and ask that black family if they still have that cross. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for future updates and future editions of Racist of the Week. And of course, let me know if there are any stories that you think we should feature below in the comments. Yes, I know I have a turtleneck on. I like turtlenecks.
Now, a lot has changed in almost a decade. The network where I actually started my TV career wouldn't ever hire anyone like me now.
Oh, cheer up, Laura. Yes, they would. They just did. I mean, assuming the other anchors at MSNBC are cool.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch.
It all started when MSNBC, in their infinite wisdom, decided to announce the hiring of former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel, which is kind of like announcing you have to use the restroom, if we're being honest. Stuff like that you should probably just handle in private. Now, I know a diversity of voices is important. Who can remember Corey Lewandowski on CNN?
So you confirmed that you were asked to obstruct justice.
No, Allison, please. That's not what I confirmed at all. By the way, the Mueller report was very clear. There was no collusion. There was no obstruction.
That's not what the Mueller report said, Corey.
It absolutely says that. And
Corey.
you should read the page that states that. And Bob Mueller
Wait a second, Corey. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Time out. Did you read the Mueller report?
No, I never did.
Then how do you know what it says?
And we will always have Paris Denard.
When a young African-American walks in a Cheesecake Factory with a Make America Great Again hat, he shouldn't be verbally accosted. You should maybe inquire as to why he's wearing it if you want to hear his point of view, but he should by no means feel that he's not welcome in a restaurant.
Okay.
This is the problem that we have as Americans, and we can all do better.
Mark, I know you want to respond to that. What do you want to say? Nah, I was wondering what the dude was in the Cheesecake Factory, but I think for me, you know, most you know, that has y'all tripping, man.
Yeah, no,
focus.
Paris.
He got me at the Cheesecake Factory, y'all. I ain't getting out this car.
Now, I clown Fox News early and often, but I'll give them credit. They got the best dissenter in the game.
Ronna McDaniel offers incredible access, which is definitely a huge part of this, and it's an election year, as Jesse said, but she's not a regular Republican. She's not a regular opposition voice, not only just because of how powerful she was in the job that she held, but she is someone who flies in the face of what has become the core ethos over at NBC and MSNBC, from refusing to say that Joe Biden freely and fairly won that election to getting on the phone with Donald Trump and calling up GOP officials in Michigan and pressuring them not to certify the election results. And so we all know this. If you tune in to MSNBC, you are going to hear about January 6th a lot. You are going to hear about how important... No, not okay. I'm not done.
Maybe because she's the only one making sense.
Step you can do is do not be on your phone. Keep your head on a swivel, keep your earbuds low, and pray that come November, there's a different change of leadership here, because if there was a Republican in office, the laws would actually be enforced, police wouldn't be defunded, and we wouldn't be in this situation.
Never mind the GOP voted to defund the DOJ, and the talking point going into the 2020 election was the liberal cities were burning to the ground. You, Emily Compagno, have now said the dumbest thing in 3 straight editions of Street Politics. We are a quarter of the way to a compilation. You keep up the good work. Now, diversity of voices is important, but diversity of reality? How do you get past that? Well, you can't. And MSNBC's own voices made that clear.
And so I want to associate myself with all my colleagues, both at MSNBC and at NBC News, who have voiced loud and principled objections to our company putting on the payroll someone who hasn't just attacked us as journalists, but someone who is part of an ongoing project to get rid of our system of government. Someone who still is trying to convince Americans that this election stuff, it doesn't really work, that this last election, it wasn't a real result, that American elections are fraudulent. Because that argument, that is a necessary part, that is the most necessary part of the overall project of getting us as Americans to give up on this election stuff. Because wouldn't we rather have a real man in charge anyway, somebody who could really get some stuff done, if only we could clear away all the things in his way. We have a long history in this country of forgettable men telling us that we need a new system of government where everything's under their control and politics is over and this new strongman way of government is gonna make America great again. We have had a lot of these guys. But our generation's version of this guy has gotten a lot farther than all the rest of them. And why is that? He would have been as forgotten as all the rest of them had he not been able to attach himself to an institution like the Republican Party, and had the leader of that party in his time not decided that she wouldn't just abide him, she would help. She would help with the worst of it. The person who was the head of the Republican Party during Donald Trump's time in office, and during his effort to throw out the election result and stay in power anyway, and during his effort to run for election again after having done that, is Ronna Romney McDaniel. And she pitched in and helped. She helped set in motion the part of the plot that involved sending fake Trump electors to Congress from states that Trump did not win, so Republicans in Washington could use those fake, fraudulent elector slates to contend that maybe Trump did win those states, even though he didn't. And don't believe me on that. There she is on page 23 and page 27 of the federal indictment charging Donald Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States.
Oh, wait, there's more.
She called me a propagandist, but I've been called worse. She was not hired by MSNBC. I found out about it on Friday when it was publicly announced. I stopped inviting Trump liars like her on this program in 2016 because I've never seen a satisfying, successful interview of a Trump liar and have never thought that I alone could crack the code of how to interview a Trump liar. They are fast and furious liars, and I doubt that I could keep up.
We learned about the hiring when we read about it in the press on Friday. We weren't asked our opinion of the hiring, but if we were, we would have strongly objected to it for several reasons, including, but not limited to, as lawyers might say, Ms. McDaniel's role in Donald Trump's fake elector scheme and her pressuring election officials to not certify election results while Donald Trump was on the phone.
To be clear, we believe NBC News should seek out conservative Republican voices to provide balance in their election coverage. But it should be conservative Republicans, not a person who used her position of power to be an anti-democracy election denier.
On the one hand, if you've read some of the criticism of NBC that has come since the announcement, it is very clear that some of the critics just don't want to be confronted with Republican voices or conservative arguments. So there is that, and that's bad. We want to have a robust exchange between people who believe different things. But I agree with what's been said here. I mean, that's not what Romney McDaniel is doing. That's not what she's been doing. And she has huge credibility problems, not because she's been a partisan spinner on behalf of the Republican Party, but because she not only presided but drove the QAnonization of the Republican Party during her tenure. And it is the case that when you look at what she did with the fake electors specifically, she wasn't on that phone call because she felt bad about somebody. Donald Trump was on the call. Right. He was telling them, she was saying, we'll get you lawyers. Because the entire 6-week period after the November 2020 election was about making the case that the election had been stolen. She did a tremendous disservice to the country by making the argument that led to the erosion of faith. We've got half of the Republicans right now believe the election wasn't fair. And even today, confronted with her past votes, she couldn't give you a straight answer until your fourth or fifth time pressing.
Taking to MSNBC's own airwaves to excoriate the company's decision, that's like, well, every game Jordan Poole plays for the Washington Wizards. That's not just sending out resumes on company time. That's conducting Zoom interviews in the conference room while ducking a work meeting in the same conference room. That is gangster. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, what did he do to make them niggas that mad? Well, let's see.
Look at wait a minute. Are you saying, as the chair of the Republican Party, that you still have questions as to whether or not Joe Biden was the duly elected president?
Joe Biden's the president.
No, I didn't ask you whether he's the president.
No, I don't think that. I think
Do you
there
think
were lots of problems.
he won the election?
I think there were lots of problems with 2020.
Do you think he won the
election?
Pardon?
But ultimately, he won the election. But there were lots of problems with the 2020 election. 100%.
And that's fair.
But I don't think he won it fair. I don't. I'm not going to say that.
You're saying you're not sure, as the Republican Party chair, that he was the legitimately elected
I'm saying there were
president.
lots of problems with the 2020 election, and we need to fix it going forward.
And reiterated you're standing behind Israel. Can you expand on your thoughts there?
Absolutely. I think this is a great opportunity for our candidates to contrast where Republicans have stood with Israel time and time again, and Joe Biden has been weak.
What do you think the most important question is that Republicans should get to the bottom of when they get there?
Well, we have to govern. We have to do things on behalf of the American people. But I do think we have to look at big tech and the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop. So first of all, it is AI generated. So we're sharing that up front ethically. So it's not a deep fake. Every single image was AI. But we are painting a picture of a future Biden America. So we have to tackle it, put them on the defensive on their policy of due date abortion, on gender selection abortion. I think that's what China does, that you can abort a baby just because it's a girl. We can't think that the American people understand what socialism is. We do have to go out and educate. We have to talk about Venezuela, where 90% of the people right now are living beneath poverty, that they don't have groceries in their grocery stores, that people are eating dog food to survive. That is the path that Democrats are taking us down. Your party's doing that just fine. We don't need to help you with that at all. You're scaring voters everywhere with the open border. I mean, just last month, 2,000 pounds of fentanyl came across our border. That could kill 500 million people. We're coming into Halloween. Every mom in the country right now is worried, what if this gets into my kid's Halloween basket?
You're talking about the rainbow
fentanyl. What if my teenager gets this? And the media right now, by refusing to report on this, is stealing our faith in the election process. Tell the story. Talk about the people who are being disenfranchised. People across this country deserve to have election integrity, faith in our election system, and believe that there is election integrity. And that's why the RNC is going to pursue this to the very end.
Yes, it was the media, not your phone calls to officials in Michigan, not your fake electors. It was the media. You gonna believe me or your lying eyes? It's the same delusion that makes Donald Trump a victim of the criminal justice system. Yeah, I did a whole video about it. It was pretty good. NBC has now decided not to bring McDaniel aboard after first shuttling her from MSNBC to NBC News. So if you're following at home, NBC decided to give a woman a job breaking down an election after one she tried to overturn based on her credentials from a job where she was fired.
I think there's something deeper going on in the Republican Party here, and I am upset about what happened last night. We've become a party of losers at the end of the day. There's a cancer in the Republican establishment. Let's speak the truth. I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023. And I think that we have to have accountability in our party. For that matter, Ron, if you want to come on stage tonight, you want to look the GOP voters in the eye and tell them you resign, I will yield my time to you.
Those credentials, and that's just a view coming from the right, her own people. Those credentials got her that job. And when faced with backlash, NBC tried to push her from the opinion-based MSNBC to the fact-based NBC News. What part of any of what you've heard was fact-based?
So first of all, it is AI generated. So we're sharing that up front ethically. So it's not a deep fake. Every single image was AI, but we are painting a picture of a future Biden America.
It makes more sense to listen to Heidi Montag's music or Kim Kardashian's music or Paris Hilton's music or Ron Artest's music. It's a whole lot of bad music out there. They let anybody cut an album. They brought her in and really tried to save her. And why not? They worked hard for it. According to the Washington Post, MSNBC President Rashida Jones personally participated in recruiting McDaniel, and she was offered a more lucrative contributor contract after she agreed to appear on MSNBC and not just NBC News. And NBC executives, including Rebecca Blumenstein and Carrie Budoff-Brown, led the hiring process. They heavily recruited this person.
I mean, since Ronna McDaniel took over as chairwoman of the RNC in 2017, we have lost 2018, 2020, 2022, no red wave that never came. We got trounced last night in 2023.
It's hard to even see through that level of privilege. It's clear that privilege extends beyond political parties, from the conservative country club to the liberal social club. Cronyism and nepotism stinks just as loudly. Oh, y'all didn't know? Yeah, Ronna McDaniel, as in Ronna Romney McDaniel.
Why did you change your name for Donald Trump? Before Trump ran for president, her name was Ronna Romney McDaniel. How does that feel, to change your name to curry favor with a madman because he doesn't like your uncle? How did you explain that to your kids?
That's the kind of integrity I'm looking for in a person. She changed her own name just to run the RNC into the ground. That's like getting a BBL to work at Brazzers. All that ass kissing just to get dumped? How does it feel?
Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being out there. I just have two fun things I wanted to say to you. One, you're such a wonderful person. You've been so great to women.
Well,
I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the
Not all women.
Well, Ronna is a friend, and I did work for NBC, and in November I worked with Caesar and Rebecca and the whole team. I've never seen anything this brutal since I got started in media in 1990.
I have her resume. People choose to fly into DCA or even BWI. That's a whole nother city. So a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, when I was back in my backsliding days, you know, the time when holidays don't mean time with family because you can't afford to see family. Holiday means you got a 3-4 day window to make bad decisions. That's really all holidays meant to me at the time. My mother was pleading with me to come home for Christmas. And I knew I couldn't afford to go home for Christmas, but it was weighing on me. And I said, you know, what would be better than just showing up, popping up, and surprising my mom in DC on Christmas Day? So I decided to look up plane tickets, and the only plane ticket I could afford last minute went into Dulles. Now, normally I flew into BWI, but you know what? I got to come into Dulles. You got to do what you got to do. So I called my mom on the way to the airport. She had no idea that I was coming. I called her on the way to the airport and I said, hey, Mom, how you doing? She said, I'm good. She'll wish you were here. And I was like, you know what? I'm on my way. She's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, I'm on my way. I'm going to the airport. I will be there shortly. She said, oh, what time you getting in? And what terminal? And I was like, oh, well, actually, I'm not flying into BWI. I'm actually flying into Dulles. And there was a long pause on the phone. And I heard, well, we ain't gonna be able to do that, baby. She had begged for me to come home for Christmas. She begged for me to come home for Christmas because she wanted her family together. But even then, she was unwilling to pick me up at Dulles International Airport. Now, I was reminded of that story when I saw this story that House Republicans have proposed renaming Washington Dulles International Airport to Donald J. Trump International Airport in honor of the former president. The bill was filed Friday by Representative Guy Reschenthaler with 6 Republican co-sponsors, Andrew Ogles and Chuck Fleischman of Tennessee, Michael Waltz of Florida, Paul Gosar of Arizona, because there's no bad bill that he won't sign on to, Barry Moore of Alabama, and Troy Nehls of Texas. As opposed to focusing on, Ukraine aid, managing the Israeli crisis in Gaza, inflation, infrastructure, immigration, whatever this was supposed to mean.
If your constitutional rights have been violated, we will defend you. If you have illegal aliens invading your home, we will deport you.
Instead of any of those things, they decided to spend their time drawing up a bill to rename Dulles Airport. I guess they really took this to heart.
I want my Republican colleagues to give me one thing, that I can go campaign on and say we did.
Now, that would be one, except of course, it ain't happening. Even if the measure did pass the House, it would have to make it through the Democratic-controlled Senate and get the signature of President Biden.
This guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know who to speak to. He's lost. He's a lost soul. Our president is a lost soul. It's pathetic.
Not too lost to throw that bill in the trash and then throw that trash can in the trash and then throw that trash can in a dumpster and then bulldoze that dumpster. However, I'm here to stand in the way of all that noise, kill that noise. Not only should Dulles be renamed for Donald Trump, it's the only logical name to adorn the airport simultaneously named amongst the top 5 most expensive airports in the nation and the worst 10 airports in the world. Did I mention it was also named one of the ugliest airports in the world? It's been so bad for so long, I even addressed it back when I hosted the news. So let's see, we got bad service, we got overpriced. I mean, sounds like the tagline to every Trump business I've ever seen. And now just a sprinkle of unsightly on top of it. This is a match made in Mar-a-Lago. The location for Dulles, by the way, was chosen by President Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, and the airport itself dedicated by President John F. Kennedy, a Democrat, a few years later. And what better way to memorialize a man who took over the Republican Party after being a Democrat for most of his life? I mean, that location can be best described as Africa, landing over 25 miles away from DC, making it so inconvenient to get to, people choose to fly into DCA or even BWI, as in Baltimore, Washington International, which is in Baltimore. That's a whole nother city. When you got people ready to fly into a whole nother city, well, that would be like the choice mainstream Republicans find themselves in today with Trump, right? Now, part of the annoyance of Dulles stems from the shuttles you have to take. Get to take from the gate when your plane lands over to the main terminal where the baggage is picked up, which means once you've waited for your plane to actually arrive, then deplane, then clean the plane, then load, then take off, then land, then deplane. Now you got to wait for a small shuttle to get your bags. Oh, and you're probably thinking the large subway type shuttles some airports have for convenience. No. Think like an overcrowded commuter bus filled with people that are late to work and were told if they come late one more time, that was going to be it. That's the energy in those shuttles, and that's the size of those shuttles that can only fit a handful of people at a time. So even when you didn't fly Southwest, you still gonna have to throw them bows. It's tedious, yet somehow less tedious than the daily blatherings from Trump on any one of his 91 cases that needs to be sorted out during election season. Dulles boasts the most international traffic of any airport in the mid-Atlantic region outside of New York. Just how Trump still brags about his business acumen despite being unable to do business in New York. You would think a major airport of this size in our nation's capital would never close shops at 9 p.m. when servicing international flights or have 2+ hour wait times in customs and immigration. What will people think of us? Probably exactly what they thought of us during every international trip I've taken after 2016. You elected who? I remember once, and by that I mean the very last time I flew into Dulles. The flight was like half the price. I was in the immigration line, and the couple in front of me was arguing. Turns out they had spent the entire flight from London fighting about whether they were going to stay together or break up. Apparently the man wanted to stay together, but the woman was all, change your heart. However, when the plane landed, his phone was just flooded with messages. I don't know if he was asleep or he was in the bathroom, but either way, you can't be caught lacking when you live in dirty. Anyway, he must have got messages from all of Northwest DC because she was not happy. And she picked this moment to leave for good, right in the Dulles immigration line. Now, if we're not going to name this place after Trump, I have no idea what we're doing. Do it for Ivana, and then open up like a Marla Maples lounge if you want to do dirt. Now, there is another possibility. Did you know there was an all-black town called Willard, Virginia, that was destroyed to build what is now Dulles International Airport? Back in the late 1950s, notices were sent to the residents claiming the land was condemned to free up space for the airport. And the town itself, by the way, was named after a rich white landowner, Joseph Edward Willard, whose family actually received reparations from the federal government for the slaves they owned back in the 1860s. So another option would be to honor the loss of those whose lives were turned upside down to even create a Dulles airport. Or you could name it after the man who built his career on the backs of swindling the little man. Actually, that's the best case for Donald Trump International of all. Welcome to your February recap and review with Reese Waters, where I grade the last 30 some odd days we just had in hopes I can foster and promote gratitude when the times were good, but also give you a place to commiserate our collective garbage experience when times are like they usually are. Don't forget to like and share the video and give me your score in the comments below. And also, if you have any personal moments of triumph or misery, I'll take those under advisement as well. Let's get to February. And how can I talk about February without starting with the Super Bowl? The Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Philadelphia Eagles 38-35 in Super Bowl 57. Let's see, LVII. Yes, I believe that is 57. Winning their third Super Bowl in franchise history. Why do we still do the Roman letters? Patrick Mahomes was excellent, which is even more impressive when you realize his brother is Jackson Mahomes. Thankfully, the talentless Bama gene missed him and went to his younger brother instead. Jalen Hurts played well enough to make it a close game and to secure a massive bag from the Eagles to stay in Philly. Meanwhile, Philly's former quarterback Carson Wentz crashed and burned his way out of DC. Man, see, I said I wasn't going to talk about them. I said I wasn't going to talk about the Commanders last year because I'm going to get mad and then I'm going to get sad. You know what? Let's just move on to the next story. Although we did get Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs, so there's hope for DC, once Ron Rivera gets fired and they change that god-awful name. Scott Adams, the creator of the Dilbert comic strip, lost his distributor and book publisher after making racist remarks on social media. Well, if you looky here, if it isn't the consequences of your own actions. Adams posted a YouTube video calling Black Americans a hate group and suggesting that white people should, quote, get the hell away from them. He did this on YouTube, the place with the most ratchet comment section ever, but not y'all. Y'all are cool. Scott Adams thought he was slick. Now he drawing a work cartoon and he ain't got no job. You know what? Dilbert was dry anyway. Ain't nobody gonna miss it. Ain't nobody coming to see you, Dilbert. You'll never be Garfield. I would much rather read Andy Capp. I would rather read Prince Valiant. And I ain't read Prince Valiant since one of those sick days back in grade school when you literally would read anything under the sun. As a matter of fact, why don't we go ahead and bring back the Far Side? We are absolutely done with Gilbert calling black people a hate group. Who do we even have the power to oppress? We didn't even get a black Dilbert character until 2022. And he looked just like Kanye. In positive news, Keke Palmer gave birth to her first child in February. Congratulations to Keke. I hope you're enjoying the best parts of motherhood, that newborn smile and getting to know the life that you created and going to Vegas and dancing on Usher. Like the whole entire experience. Hopefully this saga ends better than it's going right now. Good luck to them because that baby's going to hear about all this on social media one day. I mean, all of our kids will. I know mine won't be proud. The U.S. Air Force shot down what was described as a surveillance balloon from China as it flew over waters off the coast of South Carolina. Come on, China. Spy balloons? That's what we're doing? What type of Inspector Gadget espionage was that? You got 6 billion people. Y'all couldn't spring for actual spies? Their foreign intelligence just read a copy of Jules Verne's Around the World in a Day and was like, that's it. I got it. Then we sent the Air Force after something they could have taken out with a well-thrown dart. And believe me, it probably costs a whole month of my tax dollars to do so. I think they did all this just to distract us from TikTok. Hey, we're not capable of stealing your data. All we got is these balloons. Now download this app. North Korea fired a ballistic missile towards the sea of its east coast after Pyongyang warned of strong response to the U.S.-South Korea military drills coming up. Or, in other words, Kim Jong-un continues to Kim Jong-un. Now, they are the only nuclear power in the world that feels the need to do things that shout, hey, look at me, I'm big, I'm strong. That whole regime should have gotten hugged more when they were kids. That is toxic behavior. Doesn't get any more toxic than that. We're talking nuclear fallout, so I mean that literally. This is just so much Little Kim energy, but I ain't gonna say too much about it because Little Kim likes to take out his enemies. I should probably just shut up and move on to the next story. Just know if anything happens to me, it was probably Kim. On the topic of petty, Representative Ilhan Omar was voted out of the Foreign Affairs Committee as members of the House of Representatives voted along party lines. Republicans going after a Muslim and a woman? No. Get out. Hey, they're going to regret these revenge votes when the shoe is on the other foot. Ain't no fun when the rabbits got the gun, but I guess you know that now after the whole Speaker of the House mess that went on later in the year, thanks to more petty spite voting by Republicans. But let me not get ahead of myself. In Chicago, Lori Lightfoot lost her bid for re-election. bringing an end to her time as mayor. That is a shame. No, not because she was a good mayor, because it doesn't appear that she was. It's a shame because this woman was a meme factory. She looked like a character from a sitcom pretending to be an elected official. Her most memorable quote as mayor was telling people to stay inside during a pandemic, saying, quote, "Your jump shot is always going to be weak. Stay out of the parks." Now that is leadership. And in fact, Russell Westbrook could have used that kind of tough love last season. Your jumper is weak. Stay inside the three-point line. Lori Lightfoot, I'm going to miss you in your overgrown suits out here dressed like a 2003 NBA draft pick. Also in February, an ice storm caused widespread power outages and transportation disruptions in Texas and other parts of the southern United States. And a terrible train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio caused a fire and prompting evacuations. Plus, the Biden administration began accepting applications for student loan forgiveness under the limited waiver program. And I'm sure that's going to go smoothly because everybody wants more kids to have access to education, right? Right? But there were moments of hope. Rihanna's Super Bowl halftime show impressed, well, everybody, which is nearly impossible. I mean, she had the highest approval rating maybe of the year, but you have to stay tuned. Shakira and PK's split up provided hope for the rest of us that one day we could have a very famous and well-documented romance that blows up spectacularly. And we also got a full-length film called Cocaine Bear. Sure, it cost us Succession, but, well, actually, that was a terrible trade, but it didn't cost us Succession this month, so we ain't got to worry about it. Put that thing on layaway. Finally, on a sad note, President Jimmy Carter entered hospice care. But the good news is he's still hanging on as of this video. He might outlive the people that are caring for him. All jokes about dark subject matter aside, Jimmy Carter was a great man, is a great man, and we should all give him his flowers while he's still here to appreciate it. Now, what did I give January? I gave January a C. That was kind of harsh. Okay, February certainly comes below that. All of this misery in only 28 days? I didn't even have time to